Hello, everyone. I'm Percy number 6. Welcome back to Percy's Ever Present Past here on TWR Community Radio. I thought, my next guest needs to be a guy who has as many shows as me because Lemmy and I here are the only ones with 2 shows on this channel, and somehow we're surviving with all of this. So Lemmy,
Yeah,
Lemmy, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good. I definitely love having 2 shows on here. I have to say
Mm-hmm.
because it's just I get something different out of both of them. Character gallery. They're both reflections of my friendships with the people that I do them with. With Matt, I've talked about characters with him for years. And we're just that's our main passion when we talk to each other is kind of dissecting the characters, creating stories for them and backstories and analyzing them in every way, shape, and form. And with Multi, we just geek out about Thomas in all sorts of ways. We talk about every element of it. And when we even get into heated debates sometimes, which are always friendly, but they're very. I have kind of a rivalry with Multi sometimes when it comes to debating certain things. So it's interesting to do a show where we rank things and then compare our rankings because I think it suits us. So I really love having both of those shows. I think they just really they take the best elements of my conversations with those 2 people and they basically turn them into I think an entertaining experience. So I really love both of those.
Oh, I agree. And my favorite part about doing this with you, Lemmy, is as you and I are both very good friends with Maltai. After I moved this show to Percy number 6, once community radio round 2 didn't last, when I moved it over to Percy number 6, I was doing this somewhat weekly for a while, monthly, and I always told Malta, I'm like, hey, when I stop having people on, or I just don't know who to have next, I'll have you on, and that just has never happened yet. So now,
Oh my god, that's great.
now, like, arguably his 2 best friends on here are gonna do a Percy's Ever Present Past before him.
That's right. We'll just mock him the whole show. We'll
Yes.
just we'll just talk about it. He'll watch. He'll be seething.
We gotta say stuff like Tom Brady rocks. He'll love that.
Oh my god.
Oh man. So on that note of good cheer, let's start talking about you and your channel. Because I love my first question is one of my favorite questions I ask everybody I have on the show, and is what got you into the Thomas Wooden Railway community and ultimately made you decide to make content on YouTube?
So I love talking about this. It's because the thing is, I didn't. I think a lot of people who are in the TWRC they knew about the videos in it for a long time before they joined, and that wasn't the case at all for me. I had no idea the TWRC even existed until like late 2015 was when I found out about it.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, my whole life, like I watched YouTube, I watched Thomas videos, but I never saw any wooden railway stuff. Like it just didn't. It didn't show up in my suggested videos. I would see all types of different videos. I would see like Tomy videos and Erdl videos, and my main inspirations were trains videos and videos with HO models. Like big inspirations for me were like Henry Blue and Cactus 1907-06,
Oh yes.
and those types of people. So I watched Thomas videos as long as I can remember, but I didn't know about the Thomas Wooden Railway community. I didn't know that there was wooden railway content, and I was never really like involved with the community. Like I never really like when I would watch Thomas videos on YouTube, I would really be inspired by them, and I would love watching them. But I wouldn't like talk to anybody. I didn't even have a YouTube channel until like 2011. And so, because I just, my parents were just like, don't make an account for yourself until you're a little bit older because it's safer, which I think is a good move.
Mm-hmm.
So I would watch all types of videos, but I didn't have an account yet. So I couldn't comment on stuff. And even if I did, even once I did get my account in 2011, I didn't really reach out to many Thomas fans. There's only one friend that I really made that I actually talked to on Hangouts. But other than him, I barely talked to anybody. And so when I found the TWRC, it was like amazing because it was this really involved place where like everybody knew each other and they all like, appeared in each other's videos, and they like, it was so foreign to me, because I always looked at the Thomas fandom in general. It's just, it produces content. It's a bunch of fans who produce content, and it's really interesting and fun to watch, but they don't really talk to each other. They don't really know each other. And when I found the Thomas Wooden Railway community, that was totally different, because like, I think the first video that I stumbled upon was one of MPS's videos.
Oh, really?
And what took me aback is it wasn't like a Thomas video. It was like one of his like MPS Cribs videos or whatever, where it's like, it's literally, it had nothing at all to do with Thomas. And yet he was still clearly a Thomas fan. But he was doing like vlogs, and I'm like, it didn't register in my mind. It's like, how does if you're a Thomas fan, but you're not making Thomas videos, it was the first time I saw videos that were just focused on the person and not like the actual like Thomas, brand. And that was really interesting to me. And he mentioned other users. He mentioned like, I think he mentioned, Eric Pierre 53. And I'm like, okay, I'll go and look at him. And I slowly worked my way through this huge web of users that were all knew each other and all were connected, and it was like crazy just stumbling upon this, because this was clearly a community that had been going for a really long time. Like it had been obviously had a lot of history and was just a thing, and I had never known about it. It's crazy to me. I had no idea there was a TWRC until 2015.
Wow.
And the minute that I saw this community, I was like, I want to be a part of this. This is amazing. And you have to understand that when I first stumbled upon this community, I was making videos with HO engines. I mean, that was like my medium. That's what I like to use. And so, I was planning to do my first episode, Pacifics, as the third episode of an HO series that I was doing. And, so I had built a lot of the stuff for that series. I was really ready for it, invested in it. But I was like, the wind had kind of been taken out of my sails at the same time, because it had just gotten so frustrating making HO models, like making, and they weren't really good models. They were like all made of cardboard, and they were, they weren't nearly as detailed as like a normal HO model would be, but they were just so much more draining than making like a wooden railway model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was planning on doing that. And, I was getting burnt out with it, because I had spent like 2 months making HO models. And then all of a sudden I found the TWRC, and I'm like, wow, this place is really cool. I would love to be a part of this. And the gears in my head started turning, and I'm like, well, okay, I know that my whole life, my vision of what a Thomas video is involves some sort of detailed model. And I know that I've dedicated 2 months to making more detailed models. But like, something about this place just drew me to it. And I'm like, I want to make videos here. It would be so much more fun to make a bunch of wooden railway models, to use the models that I've already got. I mean, I've got all the main characters, right? What kind of world is it where you have to make Molly yourself? Like, I just had her in wooden railway. I didn't need to like make her. And that was amazing to me. It's like all this weight just lifted off my shoulders. I have everything at my disposal. It was just so much less stressful. And so I decided to transition my series. So I was going to do it in HO. And then when I found the Wooden Railway community, I decided to do it with Wooden Railway instead. And so that's all anybody knows me for. I mean, that's, most people probably have no idea that Pacifics was originally going to be shot with HO models. And I built a lot of the stuff for that. The original Tidmouth station that I made, that station was originally for HO models, and it just happened to scale well with Wooden Railway, so I used it for that instead. And I built like an original Tidmouth sheds that was supposed to be for the HO stuff. But when I went to Wooden Railway, I had to scale it down instead, because Wooden Railway is a little bit smaller. So stuff like that. I mean, I had to make that jump. And so it's, basically the Wooden Railway community kind of changed my idea of what a Thomas video can be. Because I always had these kind of really lofty expectations for what I had to do. And I just adore this community's focus on storytelling. Like, we're not all fussing about making it look super realistic. That isn't the point at all. It's just tell the best story that you can, or just pour passion into whatever you're doing, whether it's storytelling or set building or whatever. As long as you've got passion, you are welcome here. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And that vibe is exactly what drew me here, because it's like, I love the Thomas fandom in general, but for some reason, all those years, I didn't really get that feeling off the whole fandom as a whole.
Well, like
But
what I
this
find
little,
interesting with what you said, because you started in 2015. And man, I'm so old. I've been here since 2008, and like hearing you, hearing you talk about seeing like Matt MPS's reviews, his crossovers, and that really getting into it. Like this is like I've heard you say how you got into the community before, but hearing those words, I don't know. This must be the first time I've ever like put two and two together for this. But it's so weird because like for me, when I think about like the early days of the crossovers, like yeah, they're a while ago, but it's like I almost want to say it's like in the middle of my YouTube life cycle. Like it's been around for a while, for a while. Because again,
yeah,
I've been on here forever. But I think that's really cool. To think that because like I don't know, in my eyes, like as somebody who edits the Thomas Winter Railway Community Wiki all the time, it seems like countless people, like especially the people I've had on here, it's always like, oh, Kikari 24, I found his series, that's how I started, and that's fine. Like that's
I
good,
hear
that's
that
great.
story all the time. The interesting thing, and that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, is that it seems to me like most people here have they didn't like stumble upon it all at once. It was more like they've seen Kikre's videos for a long
Hmm.
time. They have some person that they've seen for a very long time that's inspired them. And it's crazy that even though say Kikre's videos have been around for a long time, I never saw any of them when I was younger until like 2015. And that's the crazy thing to me. I mean, it's like, because it was around, but I just didn't see it. All this was going on and I didn't see it.
Hmm.
I hear stories of, friends I now have in the TWRC, people like Train King James and Roman's TWR Empire. They'll tell stories from 2015 or 2014 or whatever. And it's like, I remember what I was doing during that time, and yet I had no idea they existed. And that's like crazy to me. It's like they were there, living their lives, existing in this community, making memories here, and I just had no idea this place existed. It was hidden away from me. Like it was out of my view. And
Hmm.
that's like I don't think people here. It might be different now. I'm not sure, but I don't think people in the TWRC realize kind of how I don't want to say secluded it is, but how it's easier to miss than you might think. Like you might not know about it if you don't stumble upon it, and if you don't find your way through the right channels, then you don't find it. It kind
Hmm.
of reminds me of Radiator Springs from Cars. It's like this really sweet, down to earth place that is just if you just take the interstate past it, you're gonna totally miss it. But if you go down the right road, you'll find this place, and it's the most tightly knit, you know, beautiful place that I just had no idea existed until I just stumbled upon it. And it took me way too long to stumble upon it. I mean, I guess I
Hmm.
just watched the right videos finally until I finally got led to MPS's channel. But like all these videos, they'll lead you to each other, but like only if you find the right ones. And that's kind of that's what amazes me.
Oh yeah, like for me, when I first found it, like it was just the reason I found this whole Thomas Winter Railway community back when it was pretty new. It was just me looking up Thomas on YouTube, or it was Google videos, not even YouTube, and stumbling upon Kikari 24, actual Kikari, not Thomas Winter Railway, it was Kikari 24 then. But but yeah, stumbling upon it, it's so interesting. I think you're exactly on point with that. It's so easy to never even have this community cross. You're like, who would think of all shows, Thomas the Tank Engine would have this large online community in 2019? Like, there's so many children's shows that have come and gone that
It really
nobody has
is.
communities for.
It's a crazy thing to happen. It's like, and even more than that, the Thomas fandom is one thing. That's big enough to the point where it has even influenced the show at some points. Like it's. I don't know how big the Thomas fandom in general is, but it is. It seems to be pretty big. But the TWRC, because I always knew about the Thomas fandom, right? I mean, if you look up Thomas videos, you'll find something from the Thomas fandom. But finding this fandom within a fandom, this little community that
Mhm.
only has like, I mean, I don't know how many people exactly are even in the TWRC who identify as members of it. But it's like, it seems to me like it could be definitely no more than 1,000 at a very high estimate. And it's
Mhm.
like, that's kind of crazy. It's like, it's a small amount of people. And I think that's really cool. It's why we can have something like TWR Community Radio, because we've got few enough people here that we're kind of speaking to that audience. We're preaching to that choir. And that's really neat. And of course, you know, it's, if we reach people outside the TWRC, that's fantastic as well. But it seems like, you know, there's kind of a community within a community. And the fact that something like that could manifest is just so interesting. It's like, what is it about Wooden Railway that would produce its own kind of separate little niche of a community? It's very interesting.
Mhm.
And you know, I just, it's had my interest ever since I first found out about it.
Well,
You know,
like I mean,
and at this point, I've been here for like 3 years, which is which, I mean, and I've known about it for almost like 4 years, which is actually kind of crazy to me, because it's like, I don't feel like I've been here for that long. You know, it feels like I kind of discovered it just a little while ago, but it's already been quite a while that I've been here. And I've made a lot of great friends while I've been here, met a lot of amazing people. There's just something so special about this place. You know, it's just like, the minute that I found it, I'm just like, there's nowhere else in the Thomas fandom I would rather be than the TWRC. I mean, this is just
oh yeah,
it's like nowhere else. You know, so
it.
I think it's just so cool. You know, and just the not even the fact that it's about Wooden Railway, because I don't even know if Wooden Railway is my favorite brand. You know, I think it's probably Trackmaster or something. But
Mhm.
it's about the people. It's about the fact that this is a place where personalities thrive, and it's not just about the content itself. And at least back when I first discovered it, it seemed like that wasn't as true in other places. But in the TWRC specifically, it seems to be the only place where you really get skit videos and reviews where you're kind of emphasizing the persona and the individuals involved. Other places in the community, it seems like it's strictly just Thomas related content, and you're not really focusing on the people behind the camera.
Mhm.
But here, that's not really true. You know, you've actually got personas. You actually kind of build a connection with the people behind the camera and the people that make up this community. It's a lot more personal, and that's, I think, really neat.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's why I want to kind of try to be more like that too, and I want to kind of have more of a persona, and kind of be in front of the camera more,
Mhm.
because I from what I was inspired by, all the stuff that I used to watch. You know, I've kind of been emulating that. And my main thing that I always want to make is my series. You know, and that'll probably never change. You know, I'm a kind of a behind the camera person, and it's easy for me to kind of just disappear from view and work on my stuff, build the models, write the scripts, edit the video, and then that's kind of all that I put out. But I would like to have a little bit more of a personal presence as well, because I mean, I'm proud of the work that I've put out, the stories that I've put out, and I have a lot planned that I want to put out a lot more as well.
Mhm.
But you know, I don't really have that personal element, and so that's something that I would like to start doing that I haven't really done before, and I'd like to kind of branch out that way, because you know, before, you know, when I first joined the community, really all I did was my episodes. That was literally the only thing I did.
Mhm.
And now I
Oh
think,
yeah.
well, you know, there's other things I can try too. You know, maybe I'll try like a review at some point, or I'll do like a few skits here and there, or whatever. I mean, it could be fun, and I've never really considered doing it until recently.
Well.
And this community seems to be the only place where that's really like a big
Mhm.
accepted thing that is kind of a type of content. So I would like to be a part of that at some point.
I think what's like what looking at that, because like I never really thought of it in that aspect. Like you're right. You know, the rest of the Thomas community focuses mostly on just making videos with whatever type of merchandise or whatnot they use to film with. But yeah, you're right in this community. I mean, I gotta give Rob a lot of credit. Wouldn't really reviews. He's the one that was the first person. Like I remember in I think 2012 when he showed his face for the first time. Like watching him, like wow, I can't believe somebody in this community is showing their face on YouTube. Like that to me was just unbelievable. And then
Yeah,
Matt MPS, like he was the one that did the first crossover. And I mean, for a while, like I mean, Matt's channel was the first true channel where they just focused on reviews and not a series or remakes.
And that's just such a novel concept to somebody who has spent their whole life watching just, straight up Thomas videos, right? Like, that's why when I first discovered the community in late 2015, that just took me aback, because it's like, this is a type of video that I would expect on like non-Thomas YouTube, right? Where it's like, people do those types of essay videos and reviews and, skits all the time, right? That's like a mainstream YouTube thing. And to see that done by Thomas fans, so that we get that type of video, but with a Thomas fan's perspective, that is the coolest thing. Like that we get videos like that, right? Where it's like you actually get skits that are parodying things that Thomas fans will get, and you actually get like a review, not just, hey, this is the good toy to buy your kid, but hey, here's all the little quirks of the history and the design of this model that you all know, and we all know everything about this model already. The review isn't telling us much, but that's not the point. It's because it's amazing to hear somebody else talk about it, because we all know how an engine, we all know everything there is to know about each wooden railway engine, right? We all have a lot of information, way more than the average person. So we're not really, rarely do we learn things through reviews, I think. But it's really nice to see another Thomas fan actually talk about it and give their views on it, because, for the longest time, I can't speak for everybody, but I think this is a common experience, is for most of my life, I didn't have Thomas friends. I had, friends in school that I would talk to, but I would tell them like, hey, I'm a Thomas fan, but like they can't relate. They don't know what that's about. They don't know why I like Thomas, or they don't know the ins and outs of the franchise. I can't vent to them about the fact that the Wooden Railway Bertram re-release has a bunker and a tender. They won't get it. They won't understand that. And it's like, and the fact that we have a place where we can actually talk to each other, and that you get a reaction where the other person is actually like, yeah, I get it, I know, is just so cool. A lot of and mostly, the videos outside of the Thomas outside of the Wooden Railway community in the greater Thomas fandom don't add that personal element. They don't really have somebody venting about an item or talking about an item to that degree. Or at least I don't remember seeing that before I found the TWRC. I see that a lot more these days, I think. But back in late 2015, at least, it seemed to me like there was no place that did that more than this community. Mm-hmm. So, that's really why I wanted to be a part of it, is because it's like, it seems like there's that added element.
Oh, yeah. I wanna touch, we're on TWR Community Radio. I kind of want to touch base with it, because when we brought it back recently this year, I remember you saying, which it was really cool to hear, how you really enjoyed Community Radio in its first run, and how it was one of your favorite things about the community. So I want you to talk about that, like but when you were first on here, what Community Radio was and what it meant to you as just someone who wasn't a part of it, versus what today, now that if in case you don't know this, Lemmy, like 90% of the images you see he made, like I think my logo might be the only I'm
kind of the main graphics guy on TWR Community Radio, where I've done the banner and done a lot of the thumbnails and screens and logos and stuff. So and that's been a lot of fun to design too, because I just love designing logos and just visual stuff in general. So it's been really fun being involved. But yeah, so when I first found TWR Community Radio, it was just the coolest thing. It was like, it's everything that I just talked about, right? Where my whole life, right? I've been watching Thomas videos on YouTube maybe since 2006, 2007. Like, that's probably when I was first allowed on YouTube, and I could actually start watching Thomas stuff. Mm-hmm. And I saw all sorts of videos, but none of them were as personal as the ones in the Thomas Wooden Railway community. None of them had personas in them. None of them, So when I first found the Thomas Wooden Railway community, one of the first things after finding MPS's videos that I actually stumbled upon was TWR Community Radio. That's something that was one of the first things that I saw, and probably one of the things that solidified what the TWRC is in my mind, because it was just a bunch of, like, essentially, like, a bunch of videos about Thomas fans talking to each other about relatable Thomas concepts. And it was just so cool. It's like literally just what I wanted my whole life. Whereas you sit there and talk to another person and they relate to you on the Thomas stuff. Like, it sounds like a simple thing. And we're all probably used to it by now because, like, we've all been talking to each other in the TWRC and in the greater Thomas fandom in general for a while now, where we can, we have, every day I can talk to somebody about how I think that Gordon is an awesome character, and the other person will be like, oh yeah, I get that, and understand legitimately what I'm saying. But for most of my life, I didn't have that, right? And so then, all of a sudden, I find TWR Community Radio, and all the videos are literally that. It's the most therapeutic thing. It's like, listening to just Thomas fans talking to each other about Thomas. Because I never heard that before. It's crazy. Like, my whole life, I'd never heard one Thomas fan talk to another Thomas fan about Thomas. That just wasn't a thing in my life. And so then, seeing all these videos that were literally that were literally talking about all the topics that I really wanted to talk about but didn't have anyone to relate to on, was the coolest thing. It's just, it's almost like being in the room with those other fans. It's kind of, you bring another fan into your conversation for 30 minutes to an hour, right? Where you basically just, you talk about something that they relate to, and that maybe they don't have the chance to talk about anyone else with that level of depth. And that's what I think is so beautiful about, TWR Community Radio. It's like, because when I first came to the community, I hadn't talked to anybody. I didn't even have, I'd left maybe a handful of comments on some videos, and I didn't even have a Twitter yet. But, so I wasn't friends with anybody here. I hadn't broken in yet. However, I did have these videos. And it's like, it's a great way to actually kind of get to know what this community is all about and what the conversations will be like and why it's so fun to be a part of it. Because, like, just hearing, watching Thomas battles with, with MPS and James and whoever else was, on that episode where they, they're debating stuff and they're just talking about Thomas in general and taking it seriously. Like, it's something that matters to them. And not just Thomas as like a meme. The best you get out of your friends in high school when you're talking about Thomas is like, oh yeah, that funny Thomas the Train meme, Thomas had to leave. He had seen everything. And they think like they're relating to you when really it's like they're not Thomas fans, right? And most people aren't, and that's fine. But it's so cool to be able to hear other Thomas fans talking about Thomas. It's really the same basic principle that all media is governed by, which is just we want something to be able to relate to. And Thomas Wooden Railway Community Radio is that for Thomas fans. It's simply Thomas fans talking about Thomas, and sometimes that's the most therapeutic thing. And I just loved all the shows when I first saw it, and it was also a great way to get to know some of the people that I'm now great friends with. It was my introduction to some of them, hearing their views, hearing kind of their the things they were interested in, and the way they articulated their points was just the coolest thing, because it's like, I didn't know if I was ever going to get to meet these people, but I got to hear some of their ideas, and that was really, really neat. And of course, now I've gotten to meet all of them. I mean, the first time I heard Matt talking was, Matt Twellman. Mm-hmm. The first time I heard him talking was in his, can't remember, what was his show called? Was it
Matt's Merchandise?
Yeah, but it was something before that, though. Was it?
Yes, he had two shows. I'm gonna look it up on the wiki as we're speaking.
Was it Getting with the Times? Was that him?
Yes, Getting with the Times sounds correct. I'll confirm it in a second, but that sounds correct.
Yeah, but I heard him talking on there. Now Matt and I are great friends.
Yep. Getting with the Times is correct.
Yeah, but I didn't know that I was ever gonna get to meet him. But hearing him talk for 30 minutes to an hour. That's almost like being in the room with that person. It kind of simulates that. And I think that's the draw of like I watch so many live streams, so many reviews, so many videos in general, in so many community radio videos when I first discovered this community, because it's just like it takes a while for the effect to wear off, that you're literally hearing other Thomas fans talking about Thomas. Like it's because I knew for a long time, pretty much my whole life, that there were other Thomas fans out there and that they were interested in Thomas, but I'd never really seen that element of community. I'd never really seen that element of them actually interacting with each other, being friends with each other. It was only ever in little pockets, like maybe, Sparkshot and Henry Blue would have like a meetup, but it was like just those two, right? And it wasn't this big network of people that all knew each other and all kind of heard the news from each other and all kind of, it wasn't like that. And so when I first came to the Thomas Wooden Railway community, and when I saw this channel for the first time, it embodied that entirely. It's just, it was the coolest thing. And it was the greatest introduction to meeting these people because, you get to know personas. You get to know who these people are to a degree. And you can't know somebody just from their videos. You simply can't. However, you can kind of get an idea of that person. So then when you do meet them, you know them to a degree where you can start a conversation and you have a foundation to build on. And this channel in general, I think it's inviting. You come up to it and you watch the videos, and it's the people running this channel actively involving the viewers in their conversations and in their lives for a brief period. And that means a lot to somebody who doesn't have any other Thomas friends. That's just the coolest thing. So I absolutely loved this channel when I first found it. It was just the neatest thing to hear other Thomas fans talk Thomas for like 30 minutes. And in fact, most of those videos were much shorter, though. They were like 10 or 20 minutes. But a few of them were longer, like an hour or so. And I'm really just covering all my bases here. You know how long the videos were.
Oh yes, I think like each time. I mean, this is our third time now. I think that we've done an even better job. I think the last time we only had like 6 shows. We have 8 shows or something. I mean, we do have Soda Streets and Statues. That's eventually going to have an episode out, I assume. But
it'll definitely happen eventually. But once Ted has the time.
Yeah, but I think what's really neat about the channel right now is there's such a vast array of shows that you can check out on. If you want a top 10s, we have a top 10s video. We have a kind of a news update for the community you can check out in case you missed a video. We have Thomas battles where people get to go head to head and compare various topics.
I really love that concept because I just love debate, and Thomas battles it's a really neat idea. You basically have Thomas fans respectfully debating each other about different topics. I mean, it's seeing 2 of my favorite things, debate and Thomas, with each other. It's just so neat, it's so fun to watch. It's very, and it's like a game show almost, it's like it's like a game, right? Because most other shows are more about kind of giving your perspective on something as a host or on interviewing somebody. But that's the only show I think where it's really like a proper game of it, where it's actually like, it's not just what was I going to say? Where it's like it's an actual interactive, competitive experience. So that's very cool. And so I'm glad that came back. And what a great choice James was for it. I mean, I just think his personality really suits. Because James is very much a moderator at heart, and he's also got kind of the snark and wit that's necessary to to run a show like that. So I think he nails it. And just segueing into the current state of the channel in general, it was so cool to because I never forgot about community radio, even though it hadn't been running for a long time. I've always thought to myself, I would have loved to be on community radio. And so when Ted first said, hey, you want to start community radio back up, because me and Multi basically were telling Ted about our show. Because Multi and I had the idea for us doing a show together just on our own for a long time. And we adapted it to work on community radio because we told Ted about our idea. And then Ted said, hey, well, that's actually, maybe we should use that to kind of launch community radio again. Because, we've already got your show. So, if we take that and then we bring in a few other people, then that'll work. Right, so that's really how Multi and I got into it, is that the 2 of us already had a show ready to go. And I just jumped on that opportunity because it was just like, I never thought I'd be able to be part of community radio. And now that I am, it's so much fun. It's so cool, and it's also low stress. It's not
Oh yeah.
difficult to produce videos for this channel. And I think I still probably, I'm probably putting too much effort into it still. Like I spend probably more time than I should editing the videos. It's up to the individual, of course, but Ted kind of had the pitch in the beginning where he's like, this should be stress-free, easy. You just record a call and then you're done. And I simply can't do that because one, I run on for a long time, and so I've got to cut out some of the points because if I don't, and this is just with my own shows, other people don't really seem to mind it, but like when I hear myself run on for a really long time, I'm like, I gotta cut that. And so I edit my shows quite a bit, to like maybe half their original length or 3/4 their original length, because there's a lot of parts that aren't really necessary. But like, when I first, was invited to be a part of this channel, I was like over the moon. It's like, that's awesome. I've always wanted to be part of community radio. And so, and having two shows, like I said in the beginning, is fantastic too. Because they both just, they're both two parts of being a Thomas fan that I really love. Character analysis and just general Thomas, I don't want to say Thomas debate because Multi and I agree on quite a bit, but Thomas, just discussing my differences with Thomas with another fan. Because my perspectives differ from Multi's perspectives, and comparing them is very interesting. And we get to visit every area of Thomas. We get to go to every, we could talk about buildings one week and episodes the next, and it's a lot of fun to do. And I'm very glad that everybody was cool with me designing, graphics and stuff too. Because the minute that I came onto community radio, I just had this vision for what it could look like. And I'm very happy with how it turned out. And the fact that we've got all new graphics and stuff, and that we have a logo for every show and that sort of thing. We have the consistent borders across every video. It seems like a little thing, and I'm sure a lot of people, they're like, it's just a border. It's not a big deal. But to me, it's like I love seeing that all the videos have that consistent border and that same logo in the same place. I just think that's a neat look, and it's a small thing, but it is a thing. So in general, I'm just so glad that I could be involved in community radio because I didn't think I'd ever be able to, and now that it's back and I am. I'm having a ball releasing episodes and doing the shows that I'm a part of, and this is the first time that I'm actually a guest on a show, so this is very cool.
Yeah, you're finally a guest on a show here in the channel.
Yeah.
I think for one, you did I personally think you did a fantastic job with all the logos. I think the only logos you didn't make were James's so Thomas Battles and Percy's Ever Present Past.
Yeah, those are the two. I believe Multi did your Percy's Ever Present Past logo, right?
Multi did. I gotta give him credit for that.
Yeah, it looks very good. And then James did a great job on his Thomas Battles logo as well. I think I did everything else. I might be missing something, but I.
Did Ted
no, it's 2091 Empire News that was done by Roman. This is his logo. So those three I didn't do, but all the other logos were me. But with input from the people. I was basically like, hey, what do you want? And then I got kind of guidelines for this is what you make. And so then I went along and made them. So it's I basically was following kind of a prompt, but I did design them pretty much from scratch.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the screens too. I think I did a border for pretty much everybody where they kind of I gave them the border to put on their screen. But then most people I think seem to have kind of done their own screens. I guess I did James's. And then I did, of course, I did the two that I'm a part of. And I want to bring up Ted's stuff as well, but it's not out yet. So
I know the logo's there, but
yeah.
the show's in waiting.
Yeah, wow, it's a coming soon show.
It is.
Or maybe coming not so soon, but coming eventually.
Coming eventually, yes. Maybe 2020, but it'll be here someday. But no, overall, I think the return of community radio. We've been going strong in these few months. It's been about 3 months since we've started the channel up again, and Yeah, I think we got the momentum still going.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm still very passionate about it. It's really cool having like character galleries going to get its like fifth episode soon, and that's like so neat. Like five, like it's not a big number, but relative to how much work has been put in, and the fact that we've kept this going and been able to get to five is fantastic, and it gives me hope that we're going to keep going for a long time. I can't wait until like just the number keeps growing and get to 10, 15. It's because it's such an achievement. It just feels so neat to have a bunch of full episodes that are just finished. Like just be able to check off characters as I go. Because it's an interesting selection too. It's like first we did Salty, then Daisy, then we did Skarloey, and then we did Bertram. So 2 Diesels and 2 narrow gauge engines.
Yes.
So that's very neat.
Mm-hmm. But I think, I think it's time to, transition over to something else. I want to touch base on the JBS Group, because that was a big project in this community, and I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of took the bull by the horn, so to speak. It was everybody had a part. Everybody who was in it, they had their part. But I think
I definitely JBS is a very interesting and complicated idea. So the thing is, JBS was kind of designed as like a here's how it started. So me and Matt have always Matt Twillman, we've always been very united on our views on Thomas, and we're very much we have kind of strict rules for how we like the universe to work. And when the trailer for Journey Beyond Sodor and eventually the movie itself came out, when that happened, we mainly just because of the bouncing. To be honest, it was really just that. We just really hated it. We hated the fact that the show was changing in that way. And so we wanted, and what frustrated me was it seemed to me like most people, or at least like maybe like half the community, didn't have a problem with it. In current day, I would say, so what, right? That's their opinion. If they can still enjoy the show, that's fantastic. I mean, that's a good thing. But back then, I feel like I was a little bit more immature. And so I was just frustrated by the fact that so few people seemed to share my opinion, and that they didn't have a problem with things. Because I was used to the quote-unquote good old days where a train didn't have a brake van and we all got furious, and Duck went missing for years and we were all furious. And now it seems that when Edward and Henry get kicked out of the sheds, half the community is trying to justify it. And it's like, I don't know, it seems like things have changed. We used to freak out when a character got kicked out. Now it's not as big of a deal. And that was my feeling back then. It's like, well, the community doesn't seem to have a problem with these changes. So why don't we make some sort of video, make like a movie that's kind of protesting those changes? That was basically our intent. And I feel like that's kind of immature, and it's a little bit of a waste of time, because it's not going to change the show. It's not going to make the show the way we want it. And plus, it's a little bit inconsiderate to the people who like where the show's going, because there's nothing wrong with looking at the show, seeing the changes, liking the bouncing, and thinking, yeah, I like where this is going. But Thomas is a really big deal to me. I value it a lot, and I'm kind of stubborn in the way that I view it. So because of that, we made this whole movie that was basically making that point, which was essentially, hey, we're going to rewrite their whole movie. We're going to rewrite JBS to be how we want it. And the way that came about was basically, I definitely took the lead on that project. Me and Matt were like the main directors, but I was definitely the one leading it. I would say, because I did a lot of the work. I wrote maybe 40-50% of the script. I did all the facial editing. I did maybe 80% of all the model work, which I don't think a lot of people realize this, but the characters that we built, like Lexi, Theo, Merlin, Hurricane Frankie, they all had duplicates, because you have to understand, when we first decided to make this movie, we were hoping to get it done in 2 months. And we started in May or something, right? So we were hoping, okay, we'll have it done by July or August or whatever. And it ended up dragging on for 8 months. So it was done in December. So it took way longer than we thought it was going to take. But we were idealistic in the beginning. We're like, okay, we'll be able to do this in 2 months. So I didn't want to have to ship things back and forth, right? I thought to myself, okay, well, we can't just ship the models back and forth, all the time. We're never going to have time for that, right? So I decided instead I'd build duplicates of everyone. So I built, I built 3 Hurricanes, 3 Frankies, 4 Merlins, 4 Theos, 4 Lexis, and then there are a few other miscellaneous items. Like I think everything else wasn't a duplicate. Well, actually, I did build 2 hand cars, and I built a turntable for Roman's Tidmus sheds, 2 little tunnel pieces that go on top of Henry's boiler, and 6 canal boats and 1 Beresford. I think that's like the full list of everything that I built. There may be a few things here and there, but that was basically it. So that was a lot of work, right? That took me like a month straight to do. And then I had to do all the facial editing and and I edited almost the whole movie too. And Multi and Matt jumped in to help me, and Ted as well jumped in to help me. Ted edited the Scotland scenes. Multi edited, what did he edit? I believe he edited 2 of the Steelworks scenes. And Matt edited, I think, 2 of the Enclave scenes. So, they definitely did some of that editing work, but I did most of it. So they were all instrumental in the process. Like, it could not have happened without them. But I definitely did more work than everybody else because I think it was mainly my view that was coming out in that movie. It was my frustration with the current show that was on display and that was being reflected. I was the one who I think was angrier than anybody else about the changes. Because I am very much kind of a stuffy Audrey type person, where I look at the changes and I look at the show and I have very specific, rigid rules for how I view Thomas, And so when I can't stand the current show, is the honest truth. And I've gotten better about accepting that some people really enjoy it, and that's just fine, and I'm happy for them. But I'm not going to be able to enjoy the current show. And JBS How It Should Be was basically, it was that reflected. It was, hey, I don't like that movie. I'm going to make my own version and stick it to Mattel. Which, I know that a lot of people liked the finished product. A lot of people enjoyed it. And that makes me so happy. That's fantastic. And I'm really glad that people, it got a positive response from some people. But a lot of people also were very frustrated by the movie. And I get why now, because, it was a very controversial kind of, I don't want to say aggressive, but it was an abrasive kind of project where it was kind of like, hey, we're appalled by this. We don't like this version of Thomas. And if you do like it, well, you're going to maybe be rubbed the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So, I get why people responded that way as well. But yeah, overall, I personally am not a big fan of the movie anymore. I made a lot of writing choices in there that I'm really not on board with anymore because we were kind of trying to write a CGI type movie rather than something that I would write in my own series. And so because of that, it didn't really hold up for me personally. But I know a lot of people still like it. And to those people, I hope they still keep enjoying it. And I'm really glad that something I made could, bring them enjoyment. I mean, that's just fantastic. I think a lot of my dislike for the movie has kind of come from the negative feedback, and I just, the response to it has kind of made me dislike it. But part of it is also just the fact that it doesn't hold up for me, but that's me personally. A lot of people like JBS How It Should Be still, and that's really cool. I'm glad that it's out there bringing people joy, and that's really what it's all about. So there were good sides and bad sides to that project. I personally, on some level, I do regret it because, I just didn't like the response it got. But on another level, a lot of people enjoyed it, and that's a great effect to have. So that is a good thing. Mm-hmm. So that's basically the ins and outs of JBS How It Should Be. That's really what there is to it.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Like there's some things in there, I didn't hear before or I didn't realize before. But it's nice to hear because JBS. I only watched it fully one time. I've watched bits and pieces of it since then. But it was very like going through that. I mean, that was a labor of love. I can see why it took as long as it did to get up, and why it took a little bit more than 2 months for it ultimately to be released.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it was a lot of work because the whole thing was like an hour and 40 minutes. I
That
can't
sounds
remember.
right.
Hour and 30. I'm not sure how
Over
long
an
it was
hour.
exactly, but yeah,
Over an hour.
it took a while to make, and it was really just the fact that I wanted to kind of make a point to people. I wanted to say, hey, I don't like the current show. Here's my version. Which you can argue whether that's a good move or a bad move, but for me, it's I that was my motivation. That's what
Hmm.
kept me going for 8 months. Also the fact that we kept saying it'll be done next month, and then we get to December and we're like, oh my god, it's all right, it's done.
Yeah.
So it was a pain to make. I have to say,
Hmm.
I didn't really. There were most of the time I didn't enjoy making it.
That's too bad.
It was quite frustrating because just the time it took, and there was a lot of a grind to it.
Hmm.
There was just so much to do,
Yeah.
and that's like just such a pain.
Well, I got one more thing I want to talk about before we end this, so I'm going to transition into the last question. And feel free to dive into it as much as you want or as little as you want in this question.
Yeah,
But now that your channel's up and not just community radio, but now that Master of the Lemons looks to be back up and running, you made your return
yeah.
video, you made your video about tugs already, and I'm sure you got more already planned. What's your plans for Master of the Lemons in the future?
Well, it's so I definitely my main priority is always my series because the main thing I love to make. I just love telling Thomas stories. That's like my main thing that I love to do. And I'm really, I'm overhauling the whole thing. I'm this time around, I'm going to build all the models from scratch. All the main characters even because I want them to kind of look closer to what I envision. Little things like I think, I like Gordon better with the bigger driving wheels than the, trailing wheels. Kind of like on
Hmm.
Flying Scotsman. I'd like to make Thomas a little bit longer. Things that people have already seen in the video, where I'm tweaking the designs of the engines a lot. I want to continue. I think my future stories are probably going to be even more dramatic and kind of they might go a little bit deeper. But it's very much the same type of storytelling I think people will expect from me. Where and I've only done 4 episodes, but I think these will make the people who saw my first 4 episodes happy. And I'm not sure exactly when my next episode is going to be out. I really can't be certain of that. I've been working on it a lot recently. I've gotten a few materials. I got a sky backdrop today. I got some boards to kind of expand my table. So I've done a whole lot of stuff for it recently. I would really, really love to get it out in December, like before December is out. And it may even land on December 30th on the what is it the anniversary of JBS How It Should Be, which would be very
You know,
interesting indeed.
that's funny. JBS How It Should Be came out the same day as Community Radio was created.
Oh really?
Yes.
Oh, that is weird. So I guess that's just a date that pops up a lot.
Hmm.
But like basically, so my main thing that I care about is really my series. And I've been working on that a lot recently. It's kind of been my main focus, and it always really is my main focus. I've been the stories that I have planned right now. I've been writing pretty heavily recently. Been modeling for, been doing a lot for in general. Um, those are kind of what I want to get out as soon as possible. But I'm a little bit behind on the showcase videos I've been wanting to do because I did Zoran and now I'm a few weeks late on the next one. But I do want to do more of those because they're quick and easy and they're really not too difficult to do. That sort of thing is always fun. Basically those two things are the main two that I can think of that are really significant. But if I had to list one thing, it'd definitely be my series. And when I say my series, I don't think I would, I may change the name. Like, I'm not exactly sure, because the thing about my series is it was never really like a series. It wasn't like sequential. Like, a series is kind of like when you have episode 1, and then episode 2 comes after episode 1, and episode 3 comes after episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's not really how mine worked. It was more like a collection of short stories. Like, they all take place in the same universe. They're more like short films that all happen to take place in the same universe, and the numbering really doesn't matter. I mean, apart from episode 1 and episode 4, you really, you could watch them in any order. They, like, if you were to put them in chronological order, I think it would go episode 3, episode 2, episode 1, episode 4 is how you would watch them in chronological order. So they're really not written that way. Like, they're really just a bunch of stories from throughout the Thomas timeline that I just happen to want to produce at those given times. So that's why they're numbered that way. Because that's kind of how I write. I don't like to be restricted to one specific time period. I like to write stories for wherever I want to write them at a given moment. And so really, I think I think my new model for series might be that I'll just name them more like short films, where I'll kind of treat each video as its own thing. The implication will be that they all share a universe, but they won't all be episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, because I think that's a little bit misleading. I think that doesn't really, and if I do like a short series, right, like say in a 6 installment kind of, short series, right, or something like that. Then I'll number, okay, part 1, part 2, part 3, etc. Because those actually have something to do with each other. But if I do stories, say if I do a one-off story about Harvey, I'm just going to label that, Harvey's Big Day or whatever. And then that's just going to be, a one-off thing. And it's, we'll know that it's part of my universe, but it won't be numbered as such. So going forward, that's my plan, is basically to make the same type of stuff, but I'm not gonna kind of advertise it as episode 1, episode 2. It's just all gonna be part of the big kind of Master of the Lemons, universe brand is kind of my goal. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm hard at work on the next stories that I have planned right now. I don't want to say too much about them at this point because I don't want to get people too hyped because I'm not positive when they're going to come out. And I know I'm not reliable when it comes to releasing stuff, so I really, I don't want to make promises.
Yep.
However, I am definitely passionate about it. I definitely want to get it out soon because there's nothing that I love more about being on YouTube than releasing episodes of my, I want to call it my series, but just my universe in general. Stories from my universe are what I love to make. And I hope to get back to doing that soon.
That's great to hear. And I think the best part is we spent just about an hour talking. I feel I still have more questions to ask, but I think an hour is a good spot to stop this.
Yeah, no, I mean, please. The thing is, it's already like 20 minutes longer than I was expecting. Like I said, I ramble. I'm very long-winded. And I could go on forever.
With these, I said this to him before we filmed. I'm like, it depends. Sometimes people, it's like, I try to do these at least 20 minutes, and sometimes people, we just get to that 20-minute mark, and other times people have a lot to say, and we take a while, and I'm okay with either or. And today it took about an hour to get this done, but here we are, Lemmy.
Yep.
So I know you're already on the channel, but what link should I put in the description for the people to go check you out on?
I guess I guess just Master of the Lemons. I mean, that's probably the place to go.
Find you on YouTube, find you on Twitter. You don't tweet all the time, but I think you're starting to be at least more active than you were a year ago on Twitter.
Yeah, no, definitely. The thing is, I think I was most active in around 2016 is where I was really active on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting to be more active again. Like, I haven't been really the past week or so. But recently I've been a lot more active in the community, which, considering I've had a pretty long period of kind of isolation where I just haven't been a part of it, it's a pretty big step, I think, for me to be consistently doing these sorts of things and really have a role in the community, because I didn't for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely more active on Twitter than before. And I will say that if somebody directly reaches out to me, to my knowledge, they always get a response. Like, I don't ever ignore anybody. Unless like I don't see their message for some reason. But if somebody asks me, I'm always going to respond.
Yeah.
So it's more about whether I want to tweet or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll always respond to people directly. So I'm always available that way through Twitter or through YouTube comments or whatever. But sometimes those do get lost. So it's not always reliable. Twitter's the best way.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. You're all ears, and I appreciate you coming on and being a part of Percy's ever-present past.
Yeah, no, it's been so great being on here. I mean, I've always loved this show, and it's great to actually, have an episode where I could come on. I mean, that's the coolest thing. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad my show got to be the first one to have you as a guest.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Well, all that said, I think now's a good spot to end it. So thank you to everybody who watched. This is Percy number 6 and
Master of the Lemons.
And we're going to say goodbye. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody.